Welcome to the Angry Nerd Podcast. My name is Arshawn Wade, aka the Angry Nerd. The Angry Nerd Podcast is brought to you by some bad life choices and a few shattered dreams. The Angry Nerd Podcast is sponsored by money that I get from my wife from my SSI check, some chick named Joni, and proceeds from listeners like you. Now, if you want to be one of the listeners that contributes to this show getting better and better each week, go on over to Cash App. My Cash App is $the Angry Nerd. Shout out. I want to give shout outs to everybody who has supported me over the past couple of weeks. Either by buying merch or just tossing the cat a couple of bucks because they know I need to get a production team behind me and they believe in the dream. Those people this week are Otis M, Aaron V, Kevin P, San K, and Julian W. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for buying channel merch. Thank you for believing in the kid. Well, they asked for it. Back by popular man, we are going to have the dreaded Christian talk. The Jesus talk. So, let me give you this disclaimer. First and foremost, the Angry Nerd Podcast is not for the faint of heart tonight. If you're one of those stumped down Bible thumpers who has thin skin and is easily offended, sorry, tough break. It is what it is, but we're going to have the conversation anyway. And I am going to have a conversation with a couple of my friends from Facebook who said that they wanted to share some of their opinions. And I really appreciate them. So let's see who's first up. Is that Derek? I think that's my guy, Lil D. Where you at, man? All I can see is your forehead. I don't know if that's you. We're going to bump you and we're going to go to the next person because we got people who are eager to hear opinions and to watch and listen to this discourse. For my listeners out there in Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube, if you hear me referencing the chat, if you're following me up to this point, I think you know I'm talking to my good brothers and sisters over in Facebook, because as I record this for you guys on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube, I broadcast live from Facebook. Why? Because that's the only thing I can afford right now. Dana Dane, what up? Talk to me. Well, while Facebook figures out who it wants to allow to jump on, I was looking for my friend girl Tanila to jump on, but I don't see her quite yet. But here's the thing. Hey, Dana, what up? There you go.
Hey, I'm working, Arshawn. I did not mean to hit join.
It's all good. Well, get out of here then. Go on back to work. Because we finna talk noise. All right, love. See you.
Cut me out. Bye.
Get out of here. Anyways, while we wait for Tanila to figure it out, I was talking earlier to some friends of mine, and they all know that I'm pretty wild, and I got some wild out ideas and stuff. And let me say this first and foremost. I don't want to discourage anyone who is a Christian or who believes in that church stuff. I don't want to discourage you from believing what you believe. And when I question and when I challenge some of the things that Christians believe, a lot of them will get so offended and they will get so put off that, you know, they won't even address the question, you know, because I know a lot of Christians are brought up in a way that they're not allowed to, bunny ears, question the Lord. They're not allowed to question God. Personally, I believe that if God is so big and so infinite and so, you know, powerful, who am I, you know what I mean, to question? You know what I mean? Like, my question isn't that big of a deal to him. You know what I mean? Or her, or however you believe. That's what I think. I think that if you made all of this and you made me with my limited understanding and my limited knowledge, why wouldn't you think that I'm going to eventually ask you some questions, or question your existence, or question what kind of power you have, or what kind of person or being you are, or this book that they gave me when I was a little kid called the Bible? Why wouldn't you expect some questions about that? Anybody who's ever read the Bible or who's gone to church and they don't have any questions, I'm scared of that person, because that means you can be talked into and walked into anything. So I'm really afraid of the people who don't have any of these questions, and who think you can't ask questions to church people or religious people in general. Tanila, where are you? I do not see you, Tanila. There she is. Let's see if she's going to jump on. But I think my mom messaged me, or she said something to me in a message, or she sent me a video. She sent me a video, and the video had some lady breaking down the word corona. She like spelled out the word corona, and then showed how if you look at where each letter is alphabetically, that it came up with 666. And I believe that this is just fear-mongering propaganda. That's what I believe personally. Tanila, you have to hit the button to ask me to add you, okay? Go down to the bottom and you'll see the little man in, man out button. Hit that right there, and then it'll send the thing to me so I can add you, okay? But anyways, I was watching the video and I was watching the breakdown, and I was like, well, the molecular number for carbon is 666. You know what I mean? Like everything that we see, the air that we breathe, carbon is everywhere. Melanin. And for those of us who don't know, white people have melanin too. It's called pheomelanin. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Just means that it's a lighter melanin. Everyone has melanin, and melanin is carbon. And so I'm like, sometimes these people, these religious zealots, they really just peddle fear. That's what I see. And it seems like everything in Christianity is fear-based. You better do this or God gonna get you. You better do that or he gonna get you. You know, and it's like, does this Negro do anything besides get people? I've heard that my whole life. He gonna get you. You know, God don't like ugly. When are these blessings that I've heard rumors of gonna come raining down, pressed down, shaking together, running over? When's that going to happen? Because I hear about him getting people all the time. Yeah, you see, God took care of sister so-and-so. She wasn't doing properly right. I've heard that time and time again. And I've also heard Christians use or reference God like he's like their goon or their henchman. You know, like, don't worry about it. You ain't got to do. God know how to take care of people like you. All right. Okay. But I can't understand why people have so much confidence in someone that they've never met, someone that they've never seen. And it seems like I referenced the relationship between those super stumped down Christians and their God or Jesus. The whole Trinity thing confuses me all the time. I've referenced those people to like a kid who has a deadbeat dad. You know, it's like dad might come around once or twice a year and he buys him like a $5 action figure, and it's like, oh, look what my daddy got me. Oh, yep, my daddy got me a toy. I got a toy. But your daddy hasn't done anything else for you all year except for buy you that one $5 toy. And it's like you hold on to it because you don't know when you're going to get the next thing, or you don't know when you're going to see him again. You don't know when there's going to be a semblance of him acknowledging your existence. So you cling to this one little thing or these couple little examples that is really faulty reasoning to me. I think a lot of times things are just faulty. And this is where a lot of Christians have a problem with me, is because I said, you know, I had the distinct pleasure of reading the entire Bible twice. I did 8 months in the hole one time in jail. Um, so I read the whole Bible from cover to cover. And what I found in my life that there are very few Christians who have actually done that. And having read the entire Bible like that, I have seen where the devil really hadn't done anything. So I make a couple of suggestions. But the God of the Bible, and I will always reference the God of the Bible because that's not the God that I believe in. I don't believe in the supreme ruler of the universe as being petty and vindictive the way I see him painted and depicted in the Bible. The way that I see him depicted in the Bible, he kills kids. Christians will argue with me, but I say, wait a minute. When he sent the angel of death to, I don't know which number of the plagues it was that he was visiting upon the people of Egypt, but he killed the firstborn. I remember Pharaoh's son died. I mean, there was a lot of kids that died. There was a lot of mothers crying. Or did that only happen in the Ten Commandments starring Charlton Heston? That was my attempted humor for the uptight Christians. But I see where every time God does one of these wild out mass killings, people will say, God works in mysterious ways. People will say that God works in mysterious ways, and anything that negative, if something negative happens, oh, you know, that devil acting up. The devil acting up. They love to say that the devil's acting up. Nobody wants to say I'm a dirtbag and I did that. It's always the devil's acting up. And any semblance of good, look at God, won't he do it? Okay, hallelujah. You know, and I'm like, and I feel, because I was raised in church, I was raised on the Bible. So there's a small twinge in my spirit that's like, oh, but what if you get to the end and you were wrong in all this? What if you were wrong? I don't want to go to hell. You know, so there's that. Like I said, it's all fear-based. When I was pretending to be a Christian, I didn't pretend to be a Christian because I loved God and I loved church and I loved Jesus. I pretended to be a Christian because I didn't want to go to hell. Because since I could understand, I've been told about there would be a lake of fire and gnashing of teeth and this, that, and the third, just all manners of bad things. So it wasn't because I loved God so much that I didn't do anything wrong, as much as it was that I was so afraid of this imaginary place called hell. I was so afraid of hell that I was like, oh, if I had a bad thought, I was like, oh, Jesus, I'm sorry, God. Oh, please forgive me. Forgive me for thinking that. Oh, I looked at a girl's booty. Oh, Jesus, please forgive me. Drive the lust out of my heart. You know, I got to an age to where I was like, hey, look, man, if I am a horrible person for having these thoughts, how much more so is God a bad person for giving them to me? Oh, and here come the Bible thumpers. God don't tempt no man. No, but he allows the temptation. You see what I'm saying? He allows the thing to happen. And that's the problem that I have with it. The Bible shows you where he allowed Jesus to be taken up and tempted. He shows where Job he allowed the devil to jump on Job. He said, man, Satan, where you been, man? And Satan said, I always think of Satan as like somebody cool, like Snoop Dogg. Like I can imagine him be like, oh shit, you know what I'm saying? I just been walking to and fro, seeing what they doing, what they got jumping, you know. And he said, ain't none of them no good. Hey, but have you considered my servant Job? And God in this story sort of seems like the Rudy Poo supervisor who's like, oh, give it to him. He can do it. He can handle it. You know, that supervisor that puts too much on the guy who never says, no, I can't take no more else. My plate is full. The supervisor who just takes advantage. That's how they paint God up in this situation. And all the devil is saying is, hey, man, look, you got a whole world out there that ain't worth a quarter, man. You might as well go ahead and let me have this. But what about Job? Hey, man, the only reason Job doing all that is because you got a hedge of protection around him. You know what I'm saying? Let me go holler at him, and I bet you he changed his mind. The first chapter in Job, he gets his whole family killed. His wife tell him curse God and died. Man, he lose all his kids. He lose all of his money. And then Satan comes. He said, yeah, but God's talking about, see, look, Job can take it. Job can handle anything. Anything you throw at him. He said, hey, but you ain't allowed me to do him nothing. He said, okay, well, hear about this. You can do whatever you want to Job. Just don't kill him, okay? I need Job. He breaks the man out in boils, has his best friends come and talk noise to him. Man, you must have been messing up, Job. All that praying and sacrificing you was doing must not have been good enough. And this goes on for 29 chapters. This goes on for 29 chapters. This happens to Job, all manner of calamity. That sounds like a very petty person. Tanila, what up, homie? I'm sorry, I was going on one. When you know when the Lord take over, you know the spirit hits you. I can't stop that. I can't quench the spirit. Okay, the Holy Ghost up in here tonight. To all my listeners out there on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube, my friend Tanila Spencer is on deck, aka God herself. So, Tanila, how do you feel? How do you feel about Jesus, Christianity, Christ, all that good stuff?
Oh man, that shit was like in my life from the get-go, from jump. Both of my parents are religious zealots. So, you know, I remember the first time hearing about hell, I was like 7 years old, you know, afraid to go to sleep at night because I'm like, okay, shit, if I do something bad, like fucking get my clip moved in class,
I'm done.
My ass is grass. You know
Toast.
what I'm saying? So you had a young Camila like praying for forgiveness to this like arbitrary being. And my whole problem, now, I'm not going to say that I don't respect religion. I'm agnostic, so I do believe that someone created me. I just don't believe that that thing or it or they or group of people or what have you gives a fuck about what I do down here. Mm-hmm. My whole plight, though, with Christianity is the concept of sin doesn't really make a lot of sense because, okay, so the whole reason sin entered the world, according to Romans and Genesis and all this shit, is that God put a tree in a garden and was just like, yo, this tree is dope as fuck, but don't touch it.
Right.
And it's just like, okay, you're this all-knowing, all-powerful being, but like I think all-knowing is the most important part because he knows everything. So he knew that they would commit this act or whatever. And then he also knows who's going to hell. And that's retarded to me because like, all right, it's like me baking cookies. I always give this analogy because I really do believe it's analogous to the whole concept of sin. It's like me baking cookies and I know that half of the batch of cookies is going to be really bad, but I go ahead and make that batch anyway, only just to discard them after baking them. So like, God, if there is a hell, we're predestined to it. Like, why the fuck did you make me anyway? And then God is also very vindictive and he's very petty, the God of the Bible, because he made Pharaoh so that his name could be glorified throughout the earth. So you made this really evil man enslave all of your people so that you can get the glory. And that always bugged me as a Christian, even when I was super religious myself. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, I want to get the glory. Fuck that. I worked hard for this. And when I was sad, this being, he didn't come down and comfort me. And I see memes all the time talking about, I wish I could just talk to God and him sit beside me. Why can't we do that? That's retarded. You're powerful. You won't even manifest yourself. So that lets me know that there is no spiritual being. For all we know, the person or the thing that made us could be dead.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing.
Yep.
Like, because I've lived like a wild life. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, all over the spectrum. I've lived a wild life. And on this journey, one time I was in jail, and I was like, I decided I was going to pray. And I said, hey, and this was my prayer. I said, hey, God, look, I've done a lot of bad things in my life. And if you're not fooling with me no more, I totally get it. You know what I'm saying? Because I done a lot of jacked up stuff. So if you don't fool with me, you need to let me know that so I can stop wasting my time, because I already feel silly being on my knees at the edge of my bed, you know, anyway. So if you don't fool with me, let me know that, okay? The next day, a guy was cleaning out his bunk, and I found this little tiny orange book that said The Teachings of Buddha, and I just felt drawn to it, and I picked it up and I started reading it. And that book put me on a quest. I studied with the Jehovah's Witness for an hour, and I will tell you, as far as Christianity goes, everything I was taught about the witnesses was wrong. I was taught that they were they have some strange things, but Christianity as a whole is strange to me. So, but the witnesses, as far as the Bible goes, they're the only people actually doing what Jesus charged his disciples with doing. They're going out, they're ministering, they're knocking on doors. There was a little old lady who met me in the parking lot of the Kroger, and she stopped with one of those little pamphlets and that shaking hand, and she was like, hey, do you know where you're going if you die? And I was like, I ain't real sure, you know. And she was like, well, let me tell you about a place called heaven and Jehovah.
Oh, God.
And I talked to her. I talked to her forever.
Sound appealing.
I talked to her forever. You know, I'll just let her talk. And I was like, well, that doesn't sound very appealing to me. You know what I mean? Being up there with white robes on and singing songs all day.
Yes.
And, you know, there are a few things on the sexual spectrum that I have grown accustomed to that I don't think they're doing up there. There's just a couple of things that I've grown accustomed to doing with my wife that I don't think they're going to be all the way cool with up there with the robes.
Me and my friend.
And the look on this woman's face. The look on her face was priceless. She was like, well, if you feel that way about it, why'd you sit here and let me talk to you? I said, well, I greatly admire the belief that you have, and I greatly admire the fact that you, a little, very old white woman, came up to me, a young black guy with a whole bunch of tattoos. You know, I'm 6 foot, 170 pounds. I'm not little, you know, but to her, I'm a big black man, you know what I mean, with a bunch of tattoos. And you had whoever you believe in gave you the courage to come up to me. And I know what I look like to people like you, you know, and I really, you know, admired that. So, yeah, I want to listen to hear what you got to say. And I'm going to show you some respect because I feel like knowing a little bit about the Bible and Christianity, I know that you guys are the closest representation of what Jesus was about. You never see him dressed up real nice. You never see him. Jesus was a bum. People don't like to talk about that. Jesus was a deadbeat. Jesus didn't have a job. He stayed with his parents till he was about 30 years old.
He was a carpenter.
They say his dad. I've never seen Jesus do nothing. His daddy was a carpenter. His stepdad. His stepdad was a carpenter. So we just generally assume that he helped Joseph out. And Joseph wasn't too bright. Because if Dominique had showed up and told me, hey, I'm pregnant and it belongs to the Lord, well, you and the Lord are going to have to have a nappy life together. Because I would have had to get up out of there. Right. So I think Joseph's a little slow to begin with. There's just a lot of things that just don't make sense in the Bible when you talk about human behavior. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tanila.
It doesn't. I'm glad that you brought that point about human behavior up because, like, our human nature, like you were saying, like, we have sexual desires, we have cravings, and we have urges. And it's like the Creator put all of these urges in us only for us not to act on them. So in the New Testament, it describes the old covenant of the law and then the dispensation of grace, which basically says that through God's grace, like his mercy, you're covered and your sins are covered and everything that you've done is already forgiven, and you're not working for your righteousness. You're born into your righteousness, just like you're born into sin. But you still have to live this godly life, and the way that you do it is through God's Spirit. But the whole thing that bothers me about that is like, okay, I like to fuck. I like to fuck. I like to do bad shit with my friends. I like to cuss.
So you're LaMilton. I like to do hood rat things with my friends.
Yes. What's his name?
LaMilton.
I like to do hood rat shit with my
I like to do hood rat things with my friends.
But like that whole lifestyle is completely, like, I feel like it damages a lot of people's psyche, because they're told that their natural state of being, like maybe someone's gay or maybe someone really is into this thing that the Bible deems like unholy or whatever. It tells humans that their human nature is inherently bad, and that's gonna fuck your psyche up. And I feel like a lot of people who pray and believe in divinity and motion and that God is moving, to me that's psychosis. Like, you need help.
Yeah.
Because there's no physical evidence. Like, Eastern religions can be just problematic. I'm not targeting just Abrahamic religions like Judaism and Christianity. Every religion has a set of things that are contradictory, things that I don't believe
Tanila,
in, but it's just this.
1 second, check this out.
Yeah.
So Candy Lady says, but when we leave this body, we are spirit. The flesh is the one that desires all of these things. No, check this out. Who created the flesh? He did. You created me to be damned. In essence, born into sin, shaping in iniquity. You started me behind the 8 ball. You created me
you are literally
to dig myself out the trenches.
To disobey.
Right.
You created me to sin. And so, like, everybody sins and comes short of the glory of God. Okay, if we don't sin, Jesus died for nothing. All right? If Jesus died and saved the whole world, then why the fuck should I give a fuck about what the Bible says? Because he already, won the victory and shit like that.
No,
so,
and then that's when they're going to come with all these other scriptures that were created before that even happened. You know what I'm saying? They're going to pull all these up. Tempt not the Lord thy God and blase, and yada, yada. And I'm like, wait.
What does that even mean? Because God tempts us by putting us in this flesh. Like, that's some fucked up shit. And the whole concept of predestination.
What scripture is that? Is that Romans 1:9? Is that Romans? There's therefore now no condemnation to those who live by the Spirit and not according to the flesh. But if I'm spirit animating the flesh, how do you differentiate the two? You see what I'm saying? Is the flesh driving the ship, or is the spirit driving the ship? You see, I can't understand that.
And it's just like this unrealistic expectation. Like, you hear preachers say every day you must deny the flesh.
Right.
So you mean to tell me I gotta wake up in the morning and deny my human nature? Do they not understand? And then Christianity is rooted in so much evilness and colonization and so I don't even want to say the white man,
But here's the thing.
And it's a tool of oppression.
You want to know what I found?
Attribute people.
One thing that stuck out to me in Buddhism, because I practice Buddhism, I study with the witnesses, I dabbled a little bit with the Muslims. They got some real far out stuff that they believe over there in Islam. I had to abandon shit. I couldn't make it a whole year with the brothers. I'm sorry. I really tried to deal with the Muslims. I took my kufi off and I had to go. Because, hey, you think Christians are far out? Talk about my Muslim brothers. The little big head dude, Yaqub, who created white people in a lab, in a cave. I was like, I couldn't get past that. I was like, all right, I'm done. Okay, I'm done. But the thing about it is that I got on this quest of spirituality, seeking a higher self, a greater purpose. And one thing I found in all the religious texts that I've been blessed to read has been, you can see where God brought a word and a person to bring information to the people, and then you can see where the people turn that person into a deity. You can see where the wording changes. It's like when you really delve off into it, there are certain things that do speak to and minister to your spirit, and then you can see the bull crap. You know what I'm saying? You're like, okay, that's man right there. And that's one thing I've learned about studying and about actually using your spirit, or some Christians will refer to it as a spirit of discernment, actually exercising that. You can see where, okay, man put his hand on that. And there are certain things that we inherently know that are bad, that are wrong, that we just know aren't good. You know what I'm saying? These I think you've referred to before as natural laws. And I really I'm not
morality.
Yeah, go ahead.
Morality is definitely a subjective concept, because it depends on where you're from, your values, what you value. Some people value the earth, and some religions and practices. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, because morality is so subjective, there are certain laws that people know, because the Bible says that those who weren't born, those that were Gentiles, became a law unto themselves, not having known the scriptures. So basically what they're saying is they know not to go commit infanticide and kill babies or murder or, all this other stuff, like these heavy moral concepts. But I feel like lighter moral concepts, like an eye for an eye, I don't like how that switches up, because if someone does me wrong, I'm going to want to seek revenge.
I got to situate you.
Back, because that's what
I gotta situate you. You done me something. I gotta get my lick back. I'm sorry. I'm petty.
Yeah,
you call it what you want to, but I gotta get mine back.
And see, my moral.
I taught my son not to hit because of that. He whacked me. Pow, Daddy. Hey, buddy. If you hit people, you're gonna get hit back.
You're gonna get it back. Yes, and so I just feel like a lot of the morality that is taught in the Bible just doesn't. It's not founded in any sort of fact or truth that you can observe. So when we're talking about lying, the Bible describes the devil as the father of lies. So that's an interesting take, because when you think about lying, you're like, okay, if I'm manipulating the truth or whatever, or if I'm saying this thing, I want to say this thing in order to get what I want, to pacify my own desires. And if no one is hurt in the process, or no one finds out, why is it immoral? Or why is showing my body immoral?
But check this out. Why was Abraham encouraged to lie and tell him that Sarah was his sister? And remember, old boy was about to take her, and he was like, hey, man, you almost had me sin, telling me that was your sister. I was going to get the goodies. You see what I'm saying? But the devil is the father of all lies, but he was divinely instructed to be dishonest. You see, it's little stuff like that gets me. It's like, wait,
the serpent and all that shit.
You told him to be slick, but you say that the devil is the father of all lies, but you created him.
You created the devil, and it says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and all things were made from Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made.
Correct.
In Him was light, and that light was the light of men. But, and it continues to say in St. John, the 1st chapter, that there is no darkness. And if you have darkness in you, you're not a son or a child of God. So that's interesting. Now, people might argue that darkness is the absence of God, but God is omnipresent, meaning He's everywhere at once. So there can be no situation, according to your own words, where you're not present.
Correct.
And that darkness, that evilness, that malice, it had to have come from somewhere, because all things were made by you. Now, you can't say all things and then kind of retract that.
How can you say that envy is one of the 7 deadly sins, but you a jealous God?
But you're a jealous God. Okay. And then one of the other things that really fucks me up about the whole morality thing and everything is just how God Himself doesn't even stick to it. He's straight up committed infanticide. He straight up committed murder. He straight up burned down cities. And I'm like, okay, so God is Jesus. Jesus is God. What the fuck is going on here?
That
And
was
a
the
lot of
first
Christians
mass
don't know
murderer
that.
whenever you get finished with it. The first mass murderer was the God of the Bible. He don't like what's going. Hey, Sodom and Gomorrah, they for done. And don't y'all look back. And then baby missed all that
that's the
freaking and
part.
balling that was going on. She turned around. She turned to a pillar of salt. I'm like, hold on, God. You got to give me a new chick, man. You just... Tanila, I can do this with you all night, but I got some other friends that want to get on and chop it up with me. It's been real. We can do this all night. Have a good night. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Now, once again, I want to say this. I'm finna get one of my good Christian brothers on here because I don't want the conversation to be one-sided. You know what I mean? I want somebody to give me some get back. Robert Jameson, what up, man? Holla at me. Jump in that thing. I see my man Earl Delaney. What up, Earl? A solid, good brother that I respect a whole lot. Robert, where you at, man? Connecting. Okay, I see you. Hey, what's going on, good brother?
Not much, man.
All right, praise God. Won't he do it?
Yes, sir, all the time.
So what do you think about the conversation that me and Tanila were just having? I know you've been chomping at the bit, good brother. Go ahead and give me some information. I'm just a wayward sinner.
No. Man, I love everybody, man. And despite their opinion, one thing I do believe, man, that no matter how people feel in their opinion, I believe that every knee still has to bow before God. And I mean, some of the things y'all were hitting on, man, is I was just talking to my wife about some stuff, man, and I was listening to a guy the other day. He said how it was a snake on the plane and how the flight attendant told the captain there's a snake on the plane, and the captain looked back and was like, okay. And they kept going up. And the higher they went, the weaker the snake got. And finally they got to 30,000 feet in the air, and the snake died. And I think about how God turned the devil into a snake, and how God will only allow Satan to get so far, so much advantage before he can't do no more. And I was listening to how y'all was talking about Job and how God tested him, man. I truly believe that God will never put more on you than you can bear. If you look back on your life, and anybody ever look back on their life, there's nothing that they can say that they went through that they wasn't able to get through it. And I'm a firm believer that everything is either God allows it or he ordains it. And I truly believe, man, that there's nothing in life that God will have you go through that you can't handle. Not nothing.
I hear you there. But how do we explain suicide? How do we explain child molestation? How do we explain rape? You know, how do you sit back? If I believe the way that the God of the Bible is sitting up there, all my life I've always thought about this big giant white guy sitting on this throne watching everything all at once. How can you sit there comfy listening to people playing harps and lyres and streets of gold and pearly gates while people are being raped and killed and all these debaucherous things are happening? How can you be content in that big cushy chair that I've heard so much about with these gates and these golden streets? How can you be okay with this? Now, don't get me wrong. I know this. Well, you know, we got free will. God didn't make us to be automatons. We got free will. I get that. So let's not attribute every little tiny good thing that happens in our life to God. Won't he do it? Every little crumb that we get, will look at God. And then when things go bad, the devil acting up.
Bad things to happen.
Yeah.
God also allowed bad things to happen to you. He allows us to get your attention.
I just don't think he's a good dude.
As far as, like you say, as far as molestation and all that, man, and you read in the book, Luke, I want to say Luke, how the man had many demons in him, and he said, I am Legion, man. And sometimes we can open up the door for the devil to come in, and it's not sometimes not intentionally. And that's why a lot of times we have to be careful of who we let our children around and stuff, because we don't know what spirit that other person has in them.
I agree with that.
And it's not something that we just want to do. But again, with our free mind, we allow the devil to come in, and we give the devil too much credit. And we always, like you say, it's the devil. No, sometimes it's us. Sometimes we did it because we wanted to do it.
Well, the Bible says that. By a man's own desires is he led away and he sinned. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to think which one. That's way in the back of the book. I ain't read the book in a long time. I think it's James. I think that's in James. I think that's where it says that by a man's own desires is he led away and then he sins. I agree with that. But that's not what you hear all the time. I think that the devil has the worst PR team imaginable. And I think that God has very crappy representatives. The God of the Bible, Jesus, has the worst representatives and just the worst, what do you call those people? Diplomats known to man. I think that he has the worst ambassadors. Because what I see is a lot of people hollering out, Jesus, Jesus, Christ, Christ, and they not right. They not righteous. And I will divulge. I have been scarred by the church. I have been scarred by church people because I have seen and witnessed people do wicked things in the name of Jesus. And I'm like, I feel like Brother Polite, although I don't all the way agree with all of the concepts involved in the Hotep movement or the woke movement. I don't believe in all of that because it's very extreme too. But I do agree in this. You created me, and I'm a jerk. But you're mad at me for being a jerk, and you created me with the spirit of jerkness. How is that okay? How do you justify condemning me, your creation? I raise my son up, and I raise him up to be a dirtbag, and then I talk about him when he becomes a man. He's a dirtbag. You ain't nothing but a dirtbag. You're just a dirtbag. Well, Daddy, you a dirtbag, and you raised me to be a dirtbag. Why are you mad? Why are you mad when you got what you made?
I would say he made. Well,
I don't understand women. I don't understand women that are Christians either, because this religion says that you are a second-rate citizen. You supposed to be quiet in the church house. You ain't supposed to teach no man. You less than. That's why but when you go to church is 70 to 85% comprised of women and children.
Women, yeah. And that's what we have to get out of, man. And that's one thing. I love church and I love my people. I love everyone, man. That's one thing we have to get out of is religion. Religion is man-made. We have to get out of that mindset, and that's what drives so many people away from the church. So many people go astray because of religion, and it's a shame that a lot of these old folks in the church, they use religion to their advantage.
Oh yeah,
and it's driving people away, especially the young folks now, man. It's driving them away because that's all they're hearing is condemnation. You this and you that. And you this, and I'm perfect, and I want you to be like me, as they would say, and it's not like that.
Rob, hold on real quick, man. Check this out. I gotta read this comment. Mr. Johnson says, a man said, if I don't get COVID, God protected me. If I get it and don't die, He kept me. If I get it and die, I get to be with Him. What in the world? I can't hardly see it. There's another option. Somebody said, but that is trauma. That is like this brother sounds. I feel like God don't need all that. I do believe in God. I just don't believe in that God. I don't believe in all these wicked things that I've seen attributed to God. I don't think that was God. I think these are wicked men who did things and put God's name on it. But like the good brother Polite said, you think I'm gonna let you rob my mom and do it in my name? You think you can come say, yeah, I just hit a lick on Cheryl, you know, and I did it in Arshawn's name. You can't. But that's what people do. They're doing wicked things in the name of God or Jesus or whoever. Because let me tell you something. When old dude, Kenneth Copeland? I breathe the breath of God on COVID-19. Oh my God. I said, oh, the hustle is real. I can't go to church because I just can't listen to these fairy tales. When I was a little boy, I believed in Santa Claus for 5 minutes. My mom told me he wasn't real, but she has yet to tell me, hey son, this stuff that we come down here to the Hustle House listening to, it ain't all this cracked up to be. Because this joker has been a no-call, no-show in the low-income communities for 400 years. I don't see how we still give this guy all of this praise and all of this credit, and we attribute everything, every little tiny, almost good thing in our lives, we attribute to a guy that we heard a rumor of. Because when we get right down to it, that's what it's just a rumor. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't believe that anyone loves God so much that's why they live the life that they live. I believe they are afraid of going to hell. I think it's fear. It's all fear, babe. Because if hell wasn't in the equation, those two big booty girls that called you at 11:30, preacher man, those two big booty girls that you seen at choir rehearsal, they might be able to get you to come on to the Mosey Wozy if it wasn't for the fear of going to hell. That's what I think. That's what I believe. I'm sorry. Go ahead, good brother.
It's not so much fear. Which a part of it is fear. You know, don't nobody want to go to hell. But it's about knowing and doing the right thing. It's like you say, what y'all was talking about earlier about how I just want to have sex and have fun. I mean, that's cool. But the word says it's better than marry. I married my wife because I love her, but also so I can be right in the eyesight of God. If I wanted to do just my fleshly thing, then I'd have stayed out there and just did my fleshly thing and did what I wanted to do. But I knew it wasn't right. And we all have that thing in our head to say, well, you know what you're doing ain't right. You know what you're doing ain't right. So I don't get why people be like, man, spirit's not real and God's not real and Jesus not real. It's something inside of you that's telling you don't do that. If you do this, it's not going to be good. If you do this, that's a great outcome. And that's my outtake on that.
All right. Well, hey, good brother, I sure appreciate your time this evening, man. I know you wanted to get in there. I'm trying to get a couple of the other homies in here. Rob, I love you, man. Be easy.
Yes, sir. Love you too, Arshawn, baby.
Already. Earl, what's up, man? I'm trying to get you on the mic. Let me see if I got somebody else I can get in here. Man, there go Jay Sean. Jay Sean, come on, fool with me because you're cool with me, baby. Got my kin people in the house tonight. He says, shaking my head, Deuteronomy 24:16 and Exodus 34:7 can't both exist. A huge contradiction. I want you to give enlighten me on that, good brother. Okay, Earl, I got you. I'm gonna get you on after Mr. Johnson Swanson. Whew, that's a whole lot to say, man. But anyways, I hope everybody's having a good time out there on Facebook. For my listeners on Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube, please bear with me as I get the good brother in here and get him on the mic so we can pop these LIPs. You know what I mean? We're just trying to have a conversation. My intention isn't to offend anybody. My intention isn't to make anybody feel disrespected or anything like that. I just want to give my honest opinion about some things as far as this whole religious thing is concerned. And it does seem like I beat up Christians a lot. And it's because that's what I was born into, was Christianity. That's the thing that I was taught and brought up on. And so that's why I've seen more wickedness when it comes to Christians than any other type of religious principle or concept. Like I said, I couldn't deal with the Muslims very long at all. I had to get all the way away from those brothers because there's some strange things when it comes down to Islam. Some things that I really just couldn't get all the way on board with. like I said, I practiced Buddhism for like 5 years. Buddhism was one of those things that just made me be a better person, you know, and that's the way I feel about religion. I feel like I don't disagree with any religion if a person tells me, hey, man, this is what I do to keep myself straight. This is what keeps me from robbing people, committing crime. This is what keeps me from being a horrible person. If Christianity does that for you, I say ride with that. If Allah and Buddhism does that for you, whatever it is that keeps you being a good person, I say do that. All I'm doing here is expressing my opinions about some things and having a conversation, because mostly I just like talking about religion, and I don't say things to deter people. I really want someone to jump on here and say something that's eye-opening, that's profound, and it's like boom, that's that moment, and I haven't had that happen yet. Jay Sean, where'd you go? No, sorry, buddy. I think he jumped off, but that's the gist of this conversation. That's what it's all about. For me, that's what it's about. I'm just expressing some opinions and some views. That's all. I don't want to turn anybody away from what they believe. I don't want anybody to go away from here and thinking, oh, that guy's an atheist, or whatever. I honestly don't know what to label myself as. If I was going to say I was a Christian, I would have to preface it with pissed off. I would have to be pissed off Christian to apply a title to myself like Christian, because there are just so many unanswered things. And I feel like if somebody could just say, I don't know, every pastor I've spoken to has always given me some cockamamie Bible verse or something like that. And it just never satisfied me. And I've waited for the day that I meet one pastor or one person of the cloth to tell me, look, young man, that's a good question. I don't know. It's one of those things we're going to have to do some research on. I never get that. I always get something that's just insufficient, just not good enough. Am I going to get somebody else in? Am I going to get, hold on, Earl, I'll see you, baby. Hold up. Something crazy's going on. Bookie, what up? I see you, boy. There he is. What up, OG?
Oh, not much. Just coming from the gym.
Oh, hey, get it in, man. Super
Good
happy to have you here, man. And I'm gonna tell you, like, because I've been able to watch your transformation and watch your walk and everything like that. And I know where you come from. I don't like to just get into people's past like that, but I know where you come from a little bit. And we got to talk to each other when we weren't the stand-up guys that we are today. And we got the distinct pleasure of meeting each other on that side of things, and the 100% honor of knowing each other right now today, and knowing a little bit about you. The good brother Earl Delaney, I'm glad you jumped on, man. Share some wisdom with me. Let me tell you something. I'm finna divulge this to you. I'm super jealous of your beard. Like, I don't have the ability to grow facial hair, so when I see these, especially most black guys' beards like don't connect, or we got the little Anthony Hamilton patch. So to have a full beard, oh man, I'm so jealous. Anyways, go ahead, good bro.
Well, one thing I don't I believe the Bible. I'm not a Christian. Closest thing I'd probably be a Jew. I'm not a Hebrew Israelite either. I'm not a Jew either. I'm a Jew by birth, but not that religion. But one thing about it is that they don't teach Christian people how to study. They don't teach them how to look back and things. And then you'll have people argument that they use is the whole time argument. They'll say, well, the Bible copied off of this, copied off of that. Now, it says that the Bible, a lot of it was written by Moses, the beginning of it. Moses was way after Adam. So if Moses wrote it, he had to get it from somewhere. So it had to be from the land of the Ugarit where Abraham lived at. So we'll have some of them same things up in there. So some of them that argue some of these other religions, they take certain parts out of those old religions, leave it all in there. Because see, most of it has a moral concept, no matter if it's the laws of Ma'at or the Ten Commandments out of the Torah, pretty much the same thing. So they'll come against something, but yet they don't want to put the moral aspect in it. So some people, the reason that they turn against it is not so much the falsehood, is because they just want to live a wicked lifestyle. They want to be able to do whatever they want to do. And you can do it, that's your business. But the thing about it is that when you do it, a lot of times you're going to suffer the consequences of doing it. Just like us, when we did things that was wrong, we suffered the consequences of it. When we begin to do things that was right, you begin to see the blessings. And it don't matter if you're a homosexual. We know the Bible speaks against that. But if you're a homosexual and you do certain things to bring a blessing, you will be blessed. That's why you see homosexuals with big money and they really doing things. Because you may have a Christian that treats a person like garbage, but you may have this homosexual that treats them right and helps them. And that's a law. That's a biblical law that if you do certain things, this is what'll happen. So all the religions tie back to the same place anyway. Correct. All of them do. And then I believe what you have through time, you have people that try to reform them, try to make them to make more sense and things like that. And then you have certain things that if you don't study the original language, the culture, you may read it just like it's written and it may not have nothing to do with that. And I think when we think of good and evil, that's more of a human thing. That's not a thing when you come to God, because even in the beginning, in the garden, when it talks about Satan, the serpent, the woman, everybody is judged in that book except for Satan. Mm-hmm. Why did he get away with it? But he wasn't judged. The woman was judged, the man was judged, and the serpent was judged. But Satan wasn't judged.
Exactly.
He did what he was supposed to do. He was put in there to do that. And it says that the Father created both light and darkness. And he could do whatever he want to do. So when we talk about fairness, he don't got to be fair. Like he said, I will show mercy on whoever I will show mercy on. Mm-hmm. It's not merciful if you get punished because of something your grandpa did. Mm-hmm. That doesn't seem fair. But in the scripture, that's what happened.
That's true.
We see that's what happened with King David. The Torah said that if you committed certain kind of sins, it was the death penalty. David didn't get the death penalty. It was something worse for David. Yeah. The way David felt, David his probably would have preferred death than to have his own children go against him.
Right.
His own children. And it said the sword would never leave your house. So, I mean, it was a lot of death and a lot of destruction.
So that means they was banging without fail. The sword will never leave. I mean, my mentality, that's what that means to me. That means you got kids over here that's cripping. You got kids over here that's hoovers. You got kids over here that's and they going to stay banging with each other. I don't know, man. That might be drawing a little bit of context to some of the things that we've seen going on in LA.
But see, we may jump on different subjects just talking, because another subject here is that a lot of people use religion to be cowards. Oh. Even in the Bible, it said a coward will not inherit the kingdom. What about King David? King David killed 200 people in one night. But you don't hear about that. You hear turn the other cheek.
Right.
And they take that out of context. And that's what happened to a lot of black people. We was too nice, too passive, and we let people do things to us that they shouldn't do. Like earlier, y'all talked about lying. It don't really matter what you do for us, what they call sin. If it's something that's going to bring forth his purpose, he allowed you to do it.
Right.
He allowed Jacob to lie to get the blessing because he wanted Jacob to get that blessing.
Right. Not only lie, I'm talking about all kinds of trickery. You know what I'm saying?
It's like if you tight with the president, you that tight with him, you don't got to worry about that. He gonna give you the pardon anyway. And it's the same way with the Father, but that's not fairness. We think of it as fairness. It got to be fair. It got to be this way. It got to be that way. But we human.
So check this out, Earl. Where do we get sayings like God's no respecter of persons or whatever like that? Have you heard that have you heard Christians say that before?
Yeah, that's in the Bible, but it's not talking about that. That's talking about judgment. Like if you was to go to the court, he's not supposed to show one person favor over another person. This is supposed to be the law, which we know with black people, they do not do this. They tried me as an adult when I was 15 years old. You don't see them trying a lot of white boys as adults when they're 15 years old. And it wasn't murder or nothing like that, but they still tried me as an adult.
Right.
And that's what they're not supposed to do.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say he's no respecter of persons, that's supposed to be the equivalent of the lady justice having the blindfold on. You know, blind justice and the scales.
The judicial system.
Correct.
It's not what they say it means. They're twisting it up when they say that he's not a respecter of persons. The way they're saying it, because he did respect certain people. Because no matter what, you have levels. Even in a household, you have the level. You have the man of the house, you have the woman, and you have the children. And it's the same thing in biblical text. You had the Jews, you had the priests, you had the Levites, you had all kind of divisions of different people.
See, and here's a very noteworthy fact that I think we omit a lot of times when we think about like government. I know I'm bunny trailing here, but go with me for a second. But in those times, the so-called leaders were ordained by God. You know what I mean? It was like the priest or whoever you would call him, whoever the clergyman was, or the prophet would seek God, and God would tell them who would be anointed as king or whatever, like when they anointed Saul and this, that, and the third. So these public officials were supposed to be chosen by God. And I think that's the very different thing in our government today is a lot of that has been stripped away. A lot of that has been stripped away. And when we talk about morality, and human laws, natural laws, you know what I mean? Just certain, we could have a conversation right here as men that makes sense. But somehow or another, it doesn't translate to those folks up on Capitol Hill. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like there's certain things, talking about the obvious, Black Lives Matter and killing innocent, unarmed people. To us, it's a no-brainer. That cop goes to jail. The same way that you or I would go to jail if we smoked him. You see what I'm saying? It's like, to me,
the death
he should be held to a much higher standard.
That's true. Yeah, because of the position.
Because you've been in courts like I have, and they will tell you ignorance of the law is not a defense. So if me, a common everyday citizen, ignorance of the law isn't a defense, it should be doubly heinous for a person who is an officer of the law, who has been imbued with the authority to enforce the law. So that would have to mean that he is much more well-versed in law and legal matters than Joe Blow citizen is. And if I get knocked off because of it, he most certainly should be doubly punished. I lost a good brother. Oh, let me add you back. I guess you hit the wrong button. But what I'm saying is we've gotten away from these people being chosen by God. These people are no longer chosen by the Most High. These people are chosen by the people, allegedly. I don't think that they're chosen by people like me and you. I think they're chosen by people who want these talking heads in these positions to appease the people. I think more so than ever, we live like they did in feudal times. You got the nobles and you got the kings and the queens and the thises and that's and the lords and what do you call those other people? Like the dukes and the duchesses. I think we got all that going on. And then us, the czars. We got the peasants down here bickering and fighting over racism, which I believe is a social construct created by the dominant society to keep the masses at odds with one another. Because soon as black people and white people right here in the same communities, just as poor as each other, start to realize we don't need these stuffy old dudes in suits ruling our lives. We don't need to keep giving them our tax money so that they can live high off the hog and fly in on jets. What we need to do is start creating real communities. What we need to start doing is creating our municipal police. We need to start codifying our wealth in our communities. Black, white, whatever, whoever you happen to live around. Like me, we came up around a hodgepodge of cultures and people and races and things like that. So I'm used to seeing Vietnamese and Mexican and Cuban and black and white. And there's some people who really aren't used to that. But whoever you happen to live around, we need to start forming real communities. For the most part, now I'm going to tell you, I'm guilty of it. I don't know any of the people who live down the street from me. I don't know any of them. I have one neighbor who's right next door to me that I know his name. And I'm not all the way sure that's his name. It's Jason or Justin. It's one of the two. I just be like, hey, what up, homie? Because I'm not entirely sure if it's Jason or Justin. And it shouldn't be that way. We should all know each other's names. We should know our kids. Once upon a time, it was that way. And that's the kind of things that we need to get back to. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, we like slaves now, man. You know, a lot of us, we work all day. Our kids go to school 8 hours a day, so our kids is with strangers all day. You know, they get more time with our kids than we get, and that's the system. That's how the system's set up, you know?
Yep.
And then, you know, you got the whole mind control thing, you know, so the more money you make, usually you won't have more cash at the end of the day. You go buy a nicer vehicle, a nicer home, and you still will have the same amount you had whenever you didn't have all that.
Right. Right. You know, and I know some people are saying, well, how did y'all get off onto that from Christianity and religion? For me, that's where it all starts at. For me, historically, growing up reading books like Uncle Tom's Cabin and the life story of Frederick Douglass and things like that, and knowing a little bit about where some of this information. The black
right
church has been weaponized.
Deuteronomy 17 and Exodus 18 talks about judicial law and how it was set up.
But
Moses learned it from Jethro.
But the thing about it for me is we got introduced to it through the black church. The black church has been weaponized against the black community. Well, I won't say the black community. I will say the low-income community has been hijacked. The low-income community's mindset has been hijacked by the church. Because country white people and country black people, you can't tell them nothing about Jesus. You're liable to get your head busted.
And it's the white one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No matter if it's black or white.
Yeah, my wife's uncle, I learned not to talk Jesus with him. He banged the table and said, Negro, say one more thing about the... Hey, I put my hands up. I said, hey, Uncle Joe. I don't want no trouble with you. He one of them good, what's his name? The father of Good Time, James Evans. He one of them kind of brothers. He's like one of them big solid country brothers. I don't want no problems. Look like he pulled motors out of the car with his bare hand.
They can, man. They had Jesus on there smiling on the cross getting beat.
Yeah, man. And I don't know what the big deal is with brothers wearing crosses and the peace and chain. I don't think Jesus liked crosses very much. I would think we would have
like wearing a noose.
Right. I would think we'd have the stone from where he broke out of the cave and rose from the dead. Maybe that doesn't look as good on a necklace, but that would make more sense to me. That symbolizes triumph, you know.
Hey, but that's another subject too. I mean, how could you believe half a book and not the rest of the book? Right. There's some harsh stuff up in the Torah, and I don't have any problem with it, but most of them do. Most of the people that say they follow the Bible, they got a problem with the stuff in the Torah.
The Old Testament was stomped down gangster stuff. There was some gangster stuff going on in that Old Testament. Yeah, for sure. It wasn't until I actually read the Old Testament that I understood what it meant when people would say, oh, we finna get biblical. I said, oh, there was some thugs back then. They had some real. They
didn't even have a prison system. Not the Hebrews.
Right.
They didn't have a prison system at all.
Right. Merc gang. You know, that's some. I think that is a topic for another conversation. But man,
it was either that or servitude. That you pay back the debt, or it was servitude for a certain amount of time. But what they do to us, man, it's almost for life. Right. You know, I was blessed to get a pardon, but if you don't get a pardon, that felony is on your record forever. After you do all them years, finish the parole, it's still on your record.
Yeah, I talked about that. I talked about that a few weeks ago. It's like you basically have a life sentence. You know, they'll always be able to ask you about that. Even though I was 18 years old when I got that charge, I'm 35. 17 years later, they still ask you a question about it.
But I found out something even with the pardon. I got a pardon, so I got all my rights back. But even with that, they can still see that. When they do a federal check, they just can't use it against you, but it's still in the system.
Right. Well, you know, I always question that when they say they can't use it against you, because that's just like in court when the prosecutor says something off color, but they say object. The jury still heard it.
It was still.
You can't unheard it, and you can't unhear it. Yeah. So I saw you got something sealed in your background. I don't know what it is, but I know it's something there. I don't know. I'd rather know what it is and make an informed decision than to not know what it is. We're going to pass on this cat right here. You know, and that's what I would think. If I was in that situation, I'd be like, oh, this brother did something. I don't know what this is. You know, I wonder what that is. Law say I can't ask him.
You want to know who you're dealing with.
I'm just not going to deal with this guy here. hey man, we're going with the more qualified candidate. And that's pretty much how I'm
gonna have to hop off here, but man, that's what I tell anybody. Anything you study, man, go to the beginning, study it, learn the language. You know, if you're that dedicated to it, why won't you learn the language? It ain't an English book, and ain't no man gods or nothing like that. A man is a man. The creator is the creator. You know, just dig up in there and find out where your doctrines come from.
Already. Hey, good brother. I sure appreciate your time tonight, man. Yes, sir, man. Keep that beard trimmed up, man. I'm coming. I'm finna get something and get it going, man. All right, good brother.
We need to link up, man.
Already. All right, folks. That's it, man. I have stayed on here way longer than I intended to. Thank you guys for riding with me. Once again, I don't have all the answers. Matter of fact, I don't think I have any answers. But I do have questions. I have a lot of questions. And I don't want to deter anyone from your walk with Christ or Buddha or Muhammad or whoever you decide to walk with. But I do want you to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. Please don't be doing it out of fear. I have a problem with Christians because a lot of Christians are just scared people. And I don't want people to be scared. I don't think that God wants people to be scared. I think God wants us to question him. I think that if we continue to ask these questions, his book says where 2 or 3 are gathered, he's there in the midst. So I think that we need to get together and bring him in the midst and ask him some serious questions. Why this? Why that? Why does your word say this? Oh, you didn't put that there? Then why did you allow someone to put it there? I'm sorry, I'll talk like this all night. I'll go on and on. My name is Arshawn Wade, aka The Angry Nerd. Hit me up, inbox me if you want to get one of the entanglement shirts or some of our other swag. I also have some Angry Nerd shirts coming soon. I got them in all white, all black, and I got the entanglement shirts in red and black. Hashtag entanglement. Oh, with the Angry Nerd. Hold on. Is that the Angry Nerd logo right there on the sleeve? Shout out to my boy Aaron Vincent for the new Angry Nerd logo. I want to wish everybody farewell. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm out.